Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. All right, everybody. This one is unique, special. Most of my guests are fitness professionals, nutrition professionals, but every once in a while I get a treat to bring you guys someone who is known for something else, but they're a devotee to fitness lifestyle. And I like diving into the end user's experience, especially if they don't come from our world directly. So I have the honor today of having JP Tremblay on the podcast. And for certainly my Canadian listeners, but a lot of Americans too, you may know JP better as Julien from the Trailer Park Boys, the iconic Canadian TV show, comedy troupe. I grew up watching you guys. I remember 2006 going to the theater watching the Trailer Park Boys, the movie, right? So it's an honor to have you on, JP.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andrew. This is great. I don't do many of these, so this is kind of cool to sit down and talk about nutrition and health and all that stuff.
And you almost never appear, we'll go to that in a bit, but you almost never appear out of character. So everybody's going to get some insider stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been talking to you online for a little while now, and you asked me to do this, and I was like, yeah, you know what? If people come up to me and they're always, wanting to talk about the nutrition and what's my routine and blah, blah, blah. Kids have grown up watching the show and they wanted to get a bit bigger and stuff. So, I usually give some advice. I'm not a professional, but, as you say, I'm interested in it.
You raise an interesting point. You are, certainly a Canadian cultural icon. And I don't know how, you feel about that title, but yeah, you're getting people coming up to you asking because your character, Julien, you've always been a guy in the gym. You've always lifted weights. So that's a part of your character. So I guess we can start here. Has your success with the show, filming schedule, and the past touring ever conflicted with your love and application of health and fitness?
Big time. It's been it's sometimes by the end of the shoot when we're filming the season, I start off with wanting to work out after, a 12-hour day, and I do it, and I'm trying to eat as good as I possibly can. But then after like a few weeks, 4 weeks of shoot filming, you're just like, wow, I need to get some rest. I'm starting to get really burnt out here. So I try my best, and it's the same thing with touring. You go to a different city every night, practically. You're on stage at night. You're on the bus driving from one city to another, sometimes for 14 hours straight driving. So it's extremely hard to eat the way I want to and to work out, because usually if we're not sleeping on the bus when we're touring, we're in hotels just along the way, and most of them wouldn't have a gym. They might have a treadmill and a couple pieces of gym equipment. So usually, as I'm getting older, I don't want to tour as much just because of that, because I'm at an age right now where I really need to work out and I really need to eat well. I'm at the point in my life as I'm getting older, I'm feeling really good. Probably the best I've felt my entire life. And I miss feeling this good when I go off to work and I can't feel this good. I really notice a big difference, especially with my age.
Were the trade-offs worth it as you guys were, building up over time, and did it ever reach a point where, your health suffered, at least in part due to the schedule, filming and the touring?
Absolutely. I mean, we write the show as well. So writing's the difficult part, I think, out of everything. Getting out into the field and actually filming, that's the dessert. But spending months in our office, which is this writing room, has no windows. It's just cork boards and all four walls. And you're there, all day, for 4 or 5, 6 months of the year before we start shooting, writing. And you're ordering stuff like takeout and stuff, and it's just not a healthy process. So I try to make the best of it. I'll come home, I'll work out, and I want to get in good shape for the show. And sometimes by the end of the writing session, I'm burnt out. All of us are burnt out. And now we've got to try to get out, into the park and start playing around and trying to feel good and get that energy back. So it's difficult. It's been difficult. And there's some seasons where the writing was a bit more grueling than other seasons. And, I'd get we'd start filming. I'd be like, man, I don't feel great. Like I've got a bit of a gut going and not as healthy as I was the season before. So it's been a battle over the years to try to like stay in shape just because of the schedule.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Israetel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years, and I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time, like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the junk volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having to log my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP. How has it been balancing, and I want to hear the origin story in a little bit. We definitely got to get to kind of how you guys started out, but we can certainly start here. Your life certainly changed because of the show. Mm-hmm. You get recognized in most places walking around, certainly in Canada, right? And probably in parts of the US. Is that difficult? Are there good joys in it? Is there something that's like, hey, this is a culmination of life's work, but are there moments where you're like, man, I just want to be able to like hang with my family and walk through society without being recognized?
Yeah, I'm extremely grateful for everything that's happened in our career and how successful the show has become and well known. And I'm just grateful. Like I will always talk to somebody if they come up to me. If they're not hammered or wasted, I'll spend some time and talk to them for as long as they want. I feel more for my kids. It's awkward to them. They don't, especially when they were younger and they weren't watching the show. I let my son start watching the show when he was 15, and I don't think my daughter's ever watched the show, but to them, they think it's really bizarre to have people come up to me and buy me drinks or, hey, do you want to smoke a joint? Where's Ricky? Oh, here, give this joint to Ricky, and stuff like that. It's really bizarre. So to them, and some people, they don't even realize that, I'm here with my family at times, and sometimes they don't care. But I don't know. I just embrace it because this is what we wanted. We knew what we were getting into, and we're just extremely grateful that we're still going after 25 years almost.
Well, let's do how it got started. Because you and I, obviously, we had talked previously, so I'd gotten a lot of this, but I would love for everybody to hear it.
How it started, Rob Wells, the guy that plays Ricky, him and I we moved to Prince Edward Island out of school, and we started up a pizza restaurant. I was in the restaurant game with my dad. I ran one of his restaurants all through high school and university. So as soon as he graduated, he's like, let's do something. And I dropped out after 4 years because I just wanted to get out there and make money. I knew how to operate a restaurant. I knew what I was doing. And I just wanted to get out there and start making money. So we moved over to Prince Edward Island. We opened up a pizza restaurant. It was crazy adventure. We didn't know what we were doing. We had 3 hours experience in making pizzas. We renovated this condemned building that should have just been torn down. And we just opened up this one place, and then it just eventually grew into us opening up a bar next door. Randy came over, the guy with no shirt. He invested in the company. We opened up a bar, and those guys eventually left. I stayed there for another 5 years and opened up a couple more restaurants and a dairy bar. And yeah, that's basically how it started. It was from us being over in PEI, not knowing anybody really, not having much time off, but when we did have time off, we would spend it doing skits We'd get out the video cameras, have a couple drinks, and just do these crazy skits, the three of us, Rob Wells, Pat Roach, and I. And that was because we had a bar. We had like this list of about 150 people on it that were barred from our bar. And we couldn't go out and enjoy ourselves and have a drink in public because we'd be meeting these people that we just, threw out the other night or whatever. So yeah, we just stayed inside and just did skits. We sent them over to Nova Scotia, back to Mike Lattenberg, who was a high school friend of mine. And he was just like, there's some of these that you should never let anybody see, but there's some really good bits here. Like I think we could do something. So he wanted to do a short film with us, and that's how it started. We did a short film. We tour around Halifax with cameras strapped to the cars, and total guerrilla style shooting. And we had this little short film that we put in the film festival, and it aired there. We went and watched it. People laughed where we were just saying, please laugh at these parts. So people were laughing at parts that we thought were funny, that, hoping to get laughs, and it didn't. And after that, I was hooked.
And what a lot of fans of the Trailer Park Boys don't understand is Bubbles was not in the original pilot. No. He was your sound man. And so we talked about this before. I remember the band Sandbox, and he was one of the guys in Sandbox. I love, God, I think it's the song Curious and Collide are a couple of songs I love.
Yeah.
East Coast, East Coast, I'm from Newfoundland, so East Coast music. And but I guess he would do this character, and he'd have you guys in stitches. So I want you to tell this.
Yeah, so Mike was our sound guy. After we did One Last Shot, that was our first little short film. I think it was 20 minutes or 30 minutes. We did the black and white Trailer Park Boy 1 hour movie, and Mike was our sound guy. And one night after we finished filming, we went back to his place to pick up something or another. He threw these glasses on and did this character. We're like, whoa, like, who is this guy? And he said, it's just a character they had been doing for years. He found these glasses, his girlfriend at the time, picked up these glasses in a flea market down in Texas. And he put these glasses on, and he just freaked us out. We're like, man, this is a good character. You've got to be in the season. And we just found out that we were getting picked up by Showcase at the time to do six episodes. So in the writing, it all happened at the right time. We saw this character, and then we started writing for Showcase, our first season, and he was in it.
Was there ever a moment where you looked around, the shows aired, and you realized, holy shit, this is big. This is life-changing big?
I don't know. It was kind of weird. It was a slow build for the show. I think after season 1 was released, we knew that it was starting to get popular. We were walking down downtown Halifax and down Spring Garden Road, one of the main drags, and people were like yelling out the windows, "Hey, Bubbles, Ricky, Julien!" People started yelling stuff out at us. We're like, "Whoa, these people must be watching the show." And then it just caught on. Season 2 and 3, it just got crazier and crazier. And then, we ended up going on tour with Our Lady Peace and Seether and Finger 11. And I remember the first show, I forget where it was. It might have been Toronto. We got up on stage just to open up the concert. And we're like, are people even going to know who we are? And we got up on stage anyway. We didn't know what we were doing. We had never done like a live anything. So we're in front of like 10, 15,000 people. I don't know what it was. And Rob went, "Smokes, let's go." And we got pelted with cigarette bags of weed and all kinds of stuff hitting us. We were like, whoa. And the crowd was going crazy. We were like, wow, like, boys, this is nuts. And then we'd go to the next city. We went right across Canada for 3 weeks. And it just got crazier and crazier until we got out to BC, which is a big weed province, especially back then. And it was just nuts. It was just crazy out there.
I already asked you about how well, actually, we can go here. How did it change your life there, like at that point?
It didn't. Well, I don't know. It didn't. We really stayed rooted, all of us. We stayed in Nova Scotia. As the years went on, we'd be, flying out to LA and having meetings there and talking to people. And we realized the show was actually pretty big in the United States, especially with Netflix. It went worldwide. It was in every country but 2, I think. then it just went bonkers. Like everybody was freaking out. We were hearing stories that, Samuel L. Jackson was a big fan, and Brad Pitt, and all these other people from the United States. And we're like, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. So we got to LA, and every time we'd fly up to LA, we'd make a ton of connections. We like boys, like every day it'd be something new. And we'd be like, at the Universal Studios and all these other studios, and people having meetings. And we were like, maybe we should move down here, because if we did move down here, it'd be insane. Things would get, we could take it up a few notches. But we just, after spending a few weeks in LA, we were just like, we got to get out of here. We got to get back home to the East Coast. So yeah, we just, I don't know, it felt different out there. We just want to stay in Nova Scotia. That's where we live, and that's where we want to stay.
Do you think that's key to why you guys were able to make this, a passion for so long, so successfully, and stay true to, the origins of the show?
Absolutely. I mean, we've got a unique sense of humor, and I think it's because of where we live. We've had other great writers that have been working with us over the years, and Saturday Night Live writers, people from The Simpsons, but they were great writers, but they just couldn't get our sense of humor totally. Being from the United States, more, trailer trash is a lot different than what we wanted to portray. We didn't want to make fun of people or crack jokes about people living in the trailer park. That's not our thing. It's just so happened we were these three guys that, had a tough time in life, and they stuck together, and they were family. And it's just a story about us trying to survive.
There's something that's accessible about the show. I mean, it's funny as hell. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. If anybody hasn't gone back to see the old episodes, I remember shit like you guys kidnapping, probably Ricky mostly, kidnapping Alex Lifeson of Rush, and, taping, I think he had taped to a chair or something like that.
Yeah.
And then smuggling garbage bags full of weed into the Rush concert to make a whole bunch of money. Right? Like, I remember these old shows. These are fantastic. Let's actually pivot a little bit into the health stuff, because again, I mentioned, your health, your fitness has been a really lifelong thing for you, but you had some health stuff pop up a few years ago. And so, what happened there, and what did you do? What was the switch that flipped? What changed in your life to, take control of your health?
Yeah, it was during COVID. It was back in 2020. I was working out. Like for 2 weeks, I noticed that my cardio was totally off. My heart rate was pretty high. I just felt like I was out of breath every time I was doing heavy compound exercises. And then I monitored myself. I was like, okay, I'm maybe it's just because I haven't been healthy. Maybe I've had too many drinks, or I've just been too busy working or whatever. So, I just concentrated on working out and my cardio a bit more. But it just kept getting worse and worse and worse until one night I was doing that. I remember I was on the leg press machine. Did that a couple sets, and I was really out of breath. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, I can't seem to get my breath back here. Took my heart rate. It was about 167, it's never that high. And I went down to bed, and I was like, this is insane. Maybe I should just go to bed. I woke up the next morning. My heart rate was still elevated. It was up to 160 something. I was like, okay, I got to go to the hospital. Something's not right here. So I basically got to the hospital, and I was walking. It was probably 30 yards to the emergency, and I almost collapsed. I was like, I had to stop, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is scary. So I went in. I checked in, and I told them what was wrong with me. I sat in the emergency room was packed. I sat in this little, it's the size of a closet, this little room. I was going, okay, what's going on? They had me hooked up to a bunch of stuff, and they were checking my levels. And then the doctor came in at one point, and he said, we think it could be cancer. And I was like, oh man, don't tell me anything but cancer. And I've had a lot of people in my family that have passed, with cancer. And that's one thing. It's my dad. He was living with me. When he got diagnosed, he was supposed to live for a year. He fought for 5 years. And so I could see, what he went through, and it was not fun. So they came back a little while, and I was like, okay, I've got to think, what am I going to do here? And I didn't, I know chemo works for a lot of people, but it's horrible to see someone going through treatment, that kind of a treatment, especially if it's, multiple treatments of radiation chemo. And I was just thinking, okay, do I want to put myself through that? Like, and I was like going, because when my dad was going through it, I was like, there's no way I would ever go through that. Just throwing up constantly, like every day was just horrible. So I sat there and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. Like, what am I going to do here? And they came back about an hour or two later after I'm thinking about, life. And they said, no, you've got blood clots in your lungs. You've been actually functioning on half a lung for quite some time now. I was like, whoa, really? So they put me on blood thinners, and away I went. They told me just to relax for a bit. I basically stayed in bed for probably 3 to 5 months, 3, 4, 5 months. And all I did was read, because one thing I wanted to do, like, cancer scared the hell out of me. I want to be prepared. I want to be able to, if I ever was diagnosed or if they made a mistake and thought it was cancer, I'd want to know what I would do instead of being, in a little room going, what the hell? So I just dove into cancer treatments and studies, and I read as much as I possibly could, and got into like the holistic part of it, and it seemed to make sense. I read that book. I forget the author, but it's basically Starving Cancer, and But what I got out of it was basically, if someone's do chemo, and I've been trying to tell my friends, because I've had quite a few friends of mine that have had chemo over the past few years, had cancer and chemo treatments. If you're going to do chemo, you should try to get as healthy as you possibly can. Stick to a good diet, get off the sugar, do some exercising, do as much as you can, make sure your levels are good, monitor your levels, take like a urine test, and just get your body to a place where, you're ready to fight it if you're going to take chemo, because a lot of people don't. And I wish more people do that, especially in hospitals. Doctors should be, giving you your essential nutrients and telling you to take this, take that. Because I've seen my father go through that, and he was, his diet was horrible, but I think would make a big difference. Anyway, so that happened, and I'm getting better, and I'm reading all these books, and then I started feeling sick again. I was eating. This is about a year later. I was eating oatmeal, and it felt like someone jabbed me in the gut with a knife. I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" So I went to the hospital, and they said I had diverticulitis. I had a hiatal hernia. I was anemic. I had sleep apnea. I wasn't sleeping much. And I was in rough shape, man. Like, I was going, what the hell's going on here? So it was at that point, I was saying to the doctors, what am I going to do? And they were like, she really didn't tell me much. She was just like, okay, try to stay away from foods that make you feel sick. Like, I was like, okay. So I dove into that. I wanted to find out exactly what was going on with my digestive system. I learned all about that and nutrition. And I just did a deep dive, man. And I've been rocking it ever since. And it's just recently started feeling better. Like, I'm talking, anytime I would eat, I'd feel sick. I'd feel totally bloated. I'd feel like, and most of the times I ended up going and getting sick, so I lost a lot of weight. But I got to figure it out. I did some tests, and I guess a food sensitivity test, and man, I was sensitive to all these foods that I was never sensitive to before, like, seed oils, that was on the list, fructose, egg yolks, like all kinds of stuff. And I was like, God, so I eliminated all these foods, and because I guess I had like leaky gut and all this other stuff going on with myself. So it's just been recently, after that deep dive into it, I figured out I basically fixed myself. I don't have sleep apnea anymore. I don't have diverticulitis. That's gone. And I'm not anemic, and I feel like 100%.
There's a few things there that are worth sort of mentioning. If anybody's not familiar, diverticulitis, that's also what Brock Lesnar had that made him had to leave the UFC. So exactly. I think that got a lot of attention. And this is a gross oversimplification, but there are certain types of foods, small particulates, seeds in particular, people have to be pretty careful about, right? I think it's brilliant getting into food sensitivity stuff. I don't know the depth of the science here, but I do understand that a lot of people, as they get older, sometimes food sensitivities will materialize and manifest. And there's going to be some stuff there. And this is why I like having the conversation with someone who's not always like hip deep in our world, because I come from what we certainly would call the evidence-based fitness community. And I find some corners of our industry get a little rigid, pedantic, condescending,
Yeah.
and the messaging doesn't reach the end user. And the reality is it's wise for us to listen to, each individual person's experience. And someone, I'll say this carefully, research does exist on a bell curve, right? So a lot of the stuff that we get out of studies, it's for the average person across a population.
Okay.
But an individual, what you ultimately did for yourself is, well, I know number one is resistance training was a big part of your life where you're able to do it, right? Two, you improved the quality of your nutrition. We'll go right over into the alcohol because I think that's a big one. But you improve the quality of the food you're eating. You ate less ultra processed food. My guess is you drop body fat during all this sort of thing, which there's
Lots
probably
of visceral fat. Yeah.
And that may have a direct relationship with the sleep apnea right there.
Yeah.
And some of the individual tactics can vary by person, but the collective whole, you engage in much healthier habits. And that was the big thing, right? So what about the journey with alcohol? Because as we joked earlier, people are feeding you rum and cokes left, right, and center. Your character on screen. I mean, how much screen time over the course of what have you guys been doing this? Like, is it 19 years or is it?
It's going to be 25 years next year.
25 years. Shit. That's amazing. So, I mean, how much screen time? Or do you exist as Julie without the rum and coke in your hand on screen over those 25 years?
Well, I didn't. There was never rum in the actual when I was shooting.
Sure,
I'd be a mess if that was the case. But no, but what we would do, we'd be in character at all times. Like we'd go on stage, I'd have a drink, and I would have a drink on my hand, we'd get people up on stage, and if they were like, let me have a drink. There's no booze, and I'd be like, yeah, there is. Well, let me have a drink. And I'd say, here, take a drink. And they'd take a drink and I'd be like, whoa. But to get that reaction and get a laugh from the crowd, that's why I did it. But yeah, so we never drank. And there was like nobody smoking dope or anything on set ever when we were working. We were full tilt, putting in our 12-hour days. But we made it look like we were. But when we did live appearances and stuff, we would drink. And we'd be those guys 100% of the time around the fans when we're on live stage or, doing events or whatever. So, yeah, people everybody thinks that we were drinking and really smoking on the show, but that wasn't the case.
But I guess as you alluded to, it was still very much a part of the lifestyle. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
I grew up in, I'm from St. John's, actually rural Newfoundland, then St. John's, went to university. I owned a nightclub for a while. I worked in them.
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit. Those were wild, fun days. I couldn't live like that anymore. I actually drink very minimally now. I've been enjoying 0% beers. I was just in Denver and my dad had been telling me how good Guinness Zero was. So I had a couple down there first time. I was floored at how good it was. Corona Zeros. Really? I'm actually really impressed with them. So it helped because it allows me to be social where it's weird. You grow up in a culture where drinking is part of being social. Yeah. Then it feels strange to be out in those environments without this drink in your hand. You're so socially conditioned to it. But if you've got a pint of Guinness in hand or a Corona Zero bottle, which looks almost the same, just a different color blue on the label, no one questions it. And there's no pressure. And you're there. And it almost unlocked the ability to go back out in these social situations. So what was your experience over time with drinking and how it changed?
You hit it right there. Being from the East Coast, especially from Newfoundland, we're a lot alike. You and I, growing up in Halifax, they're big drinking towns. We're like the Irish in many ways, and the Scottish. We're all Irish and Scottish out here, and it's just a part of the upbringing. Everybody would drink on the weekends. You're a weekend warrior. Then you work all week, and then you drink on the weekends. And it was like that for most of my life growing up. We'd get together, my friends, we'd go to the bars or we'd stay home and play cards, drink and make fools of ourselves, and trying to make each other laugh. But that's what it's like. But now it's like, especially since I've gotten older, it's totally changed. I don't really go out that much anymore. I stay at home. I read a lot. I'm not the party guy at all. But there is special occasions where I will let loose for a night and come home and wake up feeling like hell and pay for it for the next 3 to 5 days. So the partying like that is very limited now. It's just special occasions only for me. And I don't miss it. I have such a high, especially feeling sick for so long, for 5 years, dealing with this food sensitivity thing and throwing up basically almost after every meal. And, if I'd go a week straight, it'd be like, yeah. So it's been months now since I've felt bad, and I really, really enjoy it. I've got a high from working out and just feeling good, man. It's just at a different point in my life where I just want to enjoy life and my kids and my wife and my home life and relax and do fun stuff without booze and, getting drunk.
This episode is brought to you by VersaGrips. After my first workout with VersaGrips, I swore I'll never lift without them again. VersaGrips is the premier lifting grip brand, and because my friend Nick Shaw, the co-founder of RP Strength, raves about them, I finally got a pair. I love them. If you're worried that using VersaGrips will interfere with developing grip strength, it won't, and it's silly to limit how much you can lift and how close you can train target muscles like hamstrings or lats to failure because your grip is the limiting factor. I often get asked by my female clients, and I've been recommending VersaGrips long before they became a sponsor, and my clients love them. Regular straps suck. They're always too thick or too short. They're annoying to use. Personally, I've never found them effective. Maybe it's just me. VersaGrips are night and day better. They even form a protective layer between your delicate hands and the toughest barbell knurling, so they replace gloves too. VersaGrips are designed with premium non-slip materials, so you never have to worry about your grip slipping. You can just focus on lifting weight. I'll give you 2 options to grab your pair today. You can check out www.versagrips.com/Andrew Coates, which will automatically apply your discount, or visit the VersaGrips store on Amazon. Use the option that gets you the better deal, easier shipping, but shoot me a message, let me know you grabbed a pair. How's the boundary around your workouts? Like, how do they fit into your week?
I like working on a schedule, man. I wake up every morning. I eat steak and eggs every morning, unless I'm away. I eat a fairly small lunch and then a good supper, like, pound of ground beef and maybe some potatoes. And then I work out at 7:00, same night time every night, 7 till 8. I'll work out for an hour and 15 minutes, just blast the hell out of myself and just relax for the rest of the night. It's the same thing, same schedule every day.
And how many, so of those workouts, how many are strength training workouts? How much is cardio? What's the balance?
I don't do much cardio at all. I find that just an intense workout. When I get up there, I'm just balls to the wall. I give her, and I still do, and I always have. And I've got a nice gym in my house now. And when I used to go to the public gyms, I'd end up talking to people, and I'd always say that. Even when I was younger, I didn't like sitting around talking. I would just like to go in there, just work out as hard as I could, and just leave, sweat, and get out of there. So I found that just by keeping the intensity up, it's a good cardio workout as well. I do have a treadmill that I'll go on every now and then, and I'll usually do that. I find in the summer times I don't do much cardio, but now that it's getting colder out, that's when I'm going to get into doing a little bit more cardio and a lot more abs.
I'm kind of the same with the cardio stuff. In recent years, I've done a lot more of it. But This summer, I probably did the best ever. I've always wanted to go walk more, but this summer, I just explored my neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, and I just enjoyed the walks. I might put on a podcast or music or nothing. And then if I'm in another city, again, I was just in Denver for an event, and I spent time each day walking around all over downtown Denver, and I just thought it was amazing. And so I try to do this. The one time I was in Manhattan, half a day, I was walking around Midtown Manhattan, walk around Santa Monica is one of my favorite places when I get to do these things. So that's good for me. But wintertime, much harder, especially in northern Canada, like Edmonton, where I am now. And one of the things I'll do is I'll bring a book. Now I've got a Kindle, which has been fantastic. And I'll sit on a bike at the gym after a workout and I'll just read.
Cool. I do the same thing. I go away now. I do the exact same thing. I don't even realize it is cardio when I'm walking, but I'll get up whatever time I'm in. I'll get up and go have breakfast and just walk and check out wherever I'm at, whatever city I'm in, and walk around for about an hour, 2 hours in the morning before I start work, which is great, man. I love doing that. I never did before because I'd always be waking up and recovering from the night before usually. But I'm a big walker now as well. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. It is great cardio. It's contextual. So there's a couple of viral videos that literal friends of mine pull it out there. And sometimes it's clipped out, missing context, but they're both on record saying that walking isn't cardio. Now, there's context. And I know what they mean. I know that they mean that it's not necessarily enough of an adaptive stimulus to change everybody's cardiovascular conditioning. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that. But as a thing that's accessible for everybody, it's inefficient and brute force. It's time consuming, sure, but it's also very positive for us. So I think for the vast majority of people, it is extremely healthy. Part of it's like how someone defines cardio. For someone who doesn't do much walking, getting out, it's actually to be very adaptive. They're going to be deconditioned. It's going to be great. But honestly, even for really healthy, really mobile people, it's still wonderful. So again, my industry likes to get vicious within itself and pedantic about stuff. And it's like, we're mostly all on the same team. There are bad guys, but difference of interpretation. And at the end of the day, I just want people to walk more.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my father-in-law, he was a phys ed teacher. That was his career. He's retired now, obviously, but he's a big walker, and he's like this anomaly, man. They're actually doing studies on him because he is so healthy. He's never been sick a day in his life, never, not a cold, nothing. And he's a walker. He walks a lot. When he's here at my house, he's here now. He'll walk my dog twice a day, and I'm sure my dog will be happy to see him go because he's 127 pounds and he's a chocolate lab. But he's a big walker, and he's always preaching, you gotta walk, and he golfs every day. He's so fit. He's somebody actually I look up to quite a bit, just because he's so healthy, and I'd love to be as active as he is when I'm his age, that's for sure.
I'm comfortable believing that there's a causal relationship there. I mean, there's a whole bunch of factors that goes into our health and longevity, but that seems to be one that is almost ever present within populations, different parts of the world, who people tend to live older and live healthy lives as they're active. Now, there may be a bit of self-selection bias where you reverse it. It's the healthier people also are still able to do this stuff. So I think it's a little bit of both that's positively reciprocal. But either way, I still think that it's a major driver of health. And speaking of this, because you had mentioned, we talked before, how does it feel to have your friends and family now prioritizing their health more based off your example? You've said that they're getting more active, they're changing their nutrition because of your advocacy for it.
Oh, it's great. It's funny. They all listen to me now. They're always constantly coming up to me. What do I do about this? What should I be taking? I'm feeling this way. What can I take? So I love throwing around some advice to these guys, and I can see everybody's changing, and they're becoming quite a bit more healthy. My sister-in-law is the same way. She right now I'm on this kick where I juice every morning. Actually, I do it twice a day. As soon as I wake up, and it's a tip that I got from a guy on Instagram, Vitalize Official. He's a friend. He's a guy. He's a friend of Tony Robbins, and he used to be his business partner. But this guy's great as well. So I juice 3 lemons and 3 cucumbers every morning when I wake up. Then I eat about an hour afterwards. But it's the enzymes, the chlorophyll, and all the other enzymes that they help flush all the toxins out of your body. And when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a try. And I was like DMing this guy, and he's like, yeah, do this, do that. And after a week or two, I was like, whoa, do I ever got a lot of energy? And I spent all summer when we were shooting. I'd get them at, the catering. I'd say, hey, can I have one of these juices ready for me every morning? And I was juicing every morning. And then I would do it again an hour before dinner, so around 4 o'clock. And the energy I had, I could feel myself every day just getting stronger and more focused and feeling so much better. It was unbelievable to me how much energy I had. But everybody on set noticed. They were like, what is that green stuff you're drinking every morning? So I got everybody in the crew drinking cucumbers and lemons, and people are losing weight like crazy drinking this stuff. But yeah, it's something that it's been working for me, and I've been doing it for probably 6 months now, it equals out to about 2 liters a day of this stuff. So I look like a bit of a freak going to buy so many cucumbers and lemons, every week. But it's been a game changer for me, for sure. I've been losing weight, and my workouts have been a lot better. So yeah, this one tip, and I've got my sister-in-law. She's been doing the same thing, feeling a lot better. But yeah, this has been these little tips, and my mother, she's in an old folks home now, and she had her leg amputated, one of her legs amputated last year, And I just found that she just had this ongoing infection. She couldn't get rid of it. And I was just like, took a look at her diet and was like, well, how are you going to get better eating the stuff you're eating? Like, this stuff is garbage, Mom. So I talked to the dietitian. I was like, she needs her essential nutrients. And I'm a big thing about, you got to get your essential nutrients in every day. Your mitochondria will function better, your organs, everything will function better. As long as you're doing that, you stay away from the ultra processed foods. That'll make a big difference. So I got my mother on this diet. I got them giving her like, her omega-3s, magnesium, or K2, D3 every day, and good multivitamin. And it's unbelievable how quick she recovered from not only did the infection go away, but she's got so much more energy. And I wish I could get her on the juice, but I can't because a little too far for me to go and do it every day. But yeah, it's just unbelievable just how, changing your diet, just tweaking it a bit, just like getting rid of the ultra processed foods and the sugars, you feel so much better and you drop so much weight. It's incredible how fast you can lose that visceral fat.
And you're absolutely right. Like, because again, like I said, sometimes our industry gets a little pedantic about, some of the language about the evidence-based stuff, but they get funny with words like sugars and toxins, whatever. But the reality is ultra processed food, most people are eating too much of it. It's easy to get a lot of calories in there. It absolutely hijacks our hunger signaling, which of course drives more consumption. And that's probably one of the biggest problems to all this stuff. And then there's some people where their genetics make the hunger side of stuff, it's harder. And those are the people who genetically are more prone to carrying more body fat. I'm grossly oversimplifying it, but it's relevant. Yeah. And you just, people might be listening and then, then all of a sudden the evidence-based crowd hears all the right words. Omega-3, really important. Vitamin D3, really important. Magnesium, one of the most commonly deficient things we have. And just a recent episode I had with Dr. Susan Kleiner, who's a PhD in nutrition. And we're talking about performance nutrition. And she goes into all those things as being really critical, especially for athletic population. But if you have someone who is probably fairly sedentary and certainly older, just as your mom was dealing with, post-surgery and with an infection, and if the quality of the food is fairly low, then she's missing important vitamins and minerals. So this stuff is important, right? So I love this. And this is a real person's experience through all this stuff, which I love.
Yeah.
Bit of a shift. I wanted to ask you about your creative process, right? What does that look like? I know I'm going back and forth between the health stuff and the career stuff. So I want to now hear again about the career stuff.
The creative process, it's basically, we write through it the whole year. I don't hang around with the boys much when we're not at work, but when we are around each other, all we do is try to make each other laugh. And we always have our phones out. We'll make notes. We'll come up with something funny. I'm constantly making notes on my phone, and we just try to. It's getting harder. I mean, it's season 13. We just finished season 13, but and going back to the well that many times, it is getting more difficult. But all it takes is one idea, man, to spark something that'll can blossom into a whole season. So it's just basically sitting around in an office trying to make each other laugh and throwing cards up onto the wall and trying to write the series that way. So yeah, so it's basically just trying to make each other laugh. That's it, man. And we've been doing it so long that it's easy to expand on one idea, like it just ignites into another idea, and we just expand that way. So it's pretty unique, and it's pretty cool when the three of us get together and you've got that synergy, and that you're coming up with some good ideas. And then basically you don't sleep much because you're thinking about it all the time and writing down notes I do a lot of my work when I'm in bed, trying to get to sleep. And I could sit up. A lot of times I'll wake up at 2:00 in the morning and come out here and sit down with the laptop and write down a bunch of notes that I have. So it's nonstop. The writing process it's not a lot of fun, but it's somewhat fun sometimes.
How much of you, younger you, shows up in Julien? And the second part of the question is, because you've lived so much of your life in character, does Julien ever show up in you as you walk through the world?
Absolutely. It's sometimes where, especially after shooting a season, after, 3 months of filming and then, writing before that. Yeah, the character's in me quite a bit. I grew up, I've never had a boss. I've only had my father as a boss, and he was more of a mentor. He was an entrepreneur. And I've just been an entrepreneur my whole life. And that's basically what my character is. He's an entrepreneur at heart, trying to come up with a plan, trying to come up with a business idea. So a lot of me is in Julien. And I don't know, I was always, when growing up, I was usually the kind of person that would always stick up for my friends. And I always had their backs no matter what. I always had a lot of common sense growing up. I was the kind of guy where, my friends, I hung out with some pretty bad dudes, back in my teens, but I was the kind of guy that I had a good head on my shoulders. I'd be the one driving my lunatic friends around when they were drunk or whatever the hell they were on. So I always had common sense, and I always had a good upbringing. Like my parents, they loved me. My mother was a very caring woman, and I just didn't want to disappoint them. I always thought about them in the back of my mind.
I guess that conjures, you were always the straight man in the show relative to Ricky's wild schemes and, bubbles, right? I guess at least with Mike Smith, there's probably an element of he puts on the glasses, he shifts into character. It's almost an alter ego, more so than maybe you guys, right? I am curious, is Rob Wells a lot of Ricky? Because I get the impression they're one and the same.
Not really. It's funny, the Ricky character, Rob and I were roommates. He had a house. I rented out a room from him growing up when we were going to school. We had another friend who lived with us, and he would always screw up words, man. He was such a funny guy. And then when you get a few drinks on him, he'd be like, boys, I'm feeling pretty stupid tonight. Get out the notepads because I'm going to call Went zingers tonight. And we'd actually, a lot of the Rickyisms is what we call them. Quite a few of them came from our friend growing up and just being there at the moment and writing them down. And then, Rob would be away with them or something at a golf tournament. He'd be like, Jay, man, I've got some real good one. Johnny was on fire this weekend. His name was Johnny. So he's like, and he'd tell me, oh man, that's great. And you can write an episode just from some Rickyisms. Like part of the creative sometimes would be just coming up with titles for an episode and just throwing out this craziest, stupidest titles and then writing an episode based on the title.
I hope that if anybody's listening who's like, hasn't seen the show, please just, for the love of God, just go Google, YouTube, like something. I followed an account for years. I don't know who owns it. Rickyisms, right? Yeah. And it's just all these quotes from the shit he says.
Yeah, we come up with those all together. The three of us and our friend, we come up with them together. So Rob's pretty well prepared, but Rob's a great actor. He can just get out there and just let his mind go, man. And it's funny to watch, and it's hard to keep a straight face a lot of times watching Rob do his thing because he's so good at falling. When Ricky's sliding down a hill, like face first down a hill, like there's nothing funnier. And yeah, it's just good to see. You just can see that. You can see the switch when he just turns into Ricky, and you're like, whoa, okay, where did that come from?
And as you've alluded to, you guys are just a bunch of mostly guys who kind of knew each other, grew up together. But then you had, God rest his soul, John Dunsmore, Mr. Leahy.
Yeah.
What's that?
John Dunsworth.
Dunsworth. Sorry, my bad. John Dunsworth. It's been a while. But he's a classically trained actor, if I'm not mistaken, right? He's very experienced. And so you wouldn't necessarily know it, the character he played, but he was fantastic.
He's amazing. It's funny. He used to come into my dad's restaurant, and I remember being 7 years old, and my dad coming back. I was in the back office. He's like, "Son, there's a local actor here, really good actor. Come out and meet him." So he used to come into my dad's restaurant all the time, and I went out and met him. I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And we ended up becoming very, very close with John. Anytime we were away in a hotel, he went on tour with us quite a bit. He would give us acting lessons. He'd get into these crazy bits, and he was always trying to fine tune us. He was a great guy. Yeah, we miss him like crazy.
It's one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah.
So if people are interested, they can actually go follow you on Instagram. It's JP Tremblay Official, right? And there's obviously the show. You guys have a podcast. Tell people about that.
Yeah, it's called Park After Dark. We do it every week, and we haven't missed it. And I think it's over 8 years now we've been doing this. And we would do it if we were away, if we were over in the UK, we would still do the podcast. If we were in LA, we would still do the podcast. So we haven't missed one week in 8 years since we started. But we got to meet a lot of really cool people. Like we did one with Vern Troyer just before he passed away, which was really cool, mini-me. And, other people like Tom Arnold, Sebastian Bach, but a lot of musicians. So it's been a lot of fun over the years. And I actually have to do one tomorrow, so it's going to be fun. I'm doing one tomorrow with the guy from Fubar, Dave Lawrence, who you probably, yeah.
Another classic, iconic.
Yeah. Very cool guy.
Anything else you want people to plug into?
I don't know. We just started a new streaming site. It's called TPB Plus. It has a lot of stuff that's not aired anywhere, such as we put all of our content on that now. I mean, it could go on Netflix, but we'll still throw it on our site, and it's a lot cheaper than Netflix. So we've got a lot of stuff. We've basically been focusing on that and trying to get that out there. So that's basically what we've been working on mostly these days.
And I guess one thing that we had talked previously about, but didn't get on air on this episode, you also now travel less the last few years. You're staying closer to home with family. So you guys haven't been on the road, or at least you haven't been on the road in a little while. Is that something you'd like to ever get back to, or maybe pick your spots a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't want to go on the road because I was feeling sick. Like it's hard when I'm at home and I'm cooking my meals. I know I'm not going to get sick. I know what I can eat and what not to eat. And I mean, I've been better for months now, but we were over in the UK shooting Bubbles and the Shit Rockers, and we were there for, I think, 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks, a week or almost 2 weeks. And the food in the town that I was staying at was it was horrendous. I couldn't find anything that didn't make me sick. And I'd looked everywhere. It was a very difficult time being over there. So I ended up doing lots of fasts. I'd be doing okay, I got sick from my meal last night. I'm just going to do a 3-day fast and drink water with sea salt in it. So I did that, but I find it tough. Like being on the road, it's so hard to eat well. I find it very difficult. So I am feeling now a lot better now. So hopefully maybe we'll be back on the road next year, maybe with a tour, maybe a tour or something.
Well, if you get our way, I'll be there. So this has been a real. Oh, that's a no-brainer. This has been a real treat. It's been great to peel back to get to, hear all this stuff, both your health, life fitness journey, but also insight into, the magic behind the show, which again, as I keep saying, is Canadian cultural iconography. It's so cool from a Canadian who grew up watching the show to, seeing the longevity, the legacy that it's led. So JP, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for coming on, man. And everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed this one. I won't always get to do episodes like this because I'm still going to be really picky about who I bring on here. But, hopefully you guys like these and I'll work on more of them. So thanks, JP.
Okay, right on, man. Thanks, buddy.